Welcome to stormino.net, another way of looking at online TV. I hope you've been enjoying the many interviews that we've been conducting. It's a different way, different flavor. It's open dialogue that no issue is untouchable. And today I have the distinct opportunity to interview Chief Bobby Cummings and get his perspective on policing crime in this area and other areas around the country. So stay tuned, sit back and relax. How you doing, Chief?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Chief, let's dive right into it. I had an off-camera conversation with you about urban violence in inner cities. And I want you to tell me, if you look at it here in New York, Chicago, Detroit, or some small towns in Anchorage, Alaska, in urban areas, seems like crime, or at least shootings, are rampant. Why? I mean, what's your impression?
Well, part of my take on it is there's an atmosphere out here where drugs are prevalent in the community, that everyone's battling over a certain amount of income and or economic situation that's going on. So when you look at the country right now, we've been in an economic state where we've been in a poverty level, individuals are without jobs, the flexible income that people once had is kind of diminished. So then you take that to what we consider the drug game. You look at that economic situation also, how the money was flourishing is really not there the way it was once in the past. So now you have competing individuals going after one another for the same, we'll again say economic flexibility. In that, everyone not having it, it's causing some battles. And people's temper to be more compatible to what they're doing is causing a lot of tension. So then you get these rival gangs and rival situations.
You actually think they're gangs?
I think there's a affiliated group,
but not like organized gang.
Not an organized gang like we're talking Bloods and Crips of that nature. You have people who want to go toward those facets and say that they're part of that, but I don't think what we have here in the city is not that organized. We have loosely affiliated groups.
You know, when you talk about drugs, right, and I get it, and I look at it, and you could correct me, I looked at it like when you're selling heroin, Oxycontin, Percocets, those are like petty drugs. I mean, like $5 a bag, $10 a pill, $5 a pill.
Where they're not petty when an individual seeks that, and that's what they need to fulfill their need. To them, it's not petty. And it's very lucrative. I mean, there's a lot of money associated with that.
Oh, for real?
And it's pretty easily to obtain when people have prescription drugs that are sitting around the house, and you understand that there's a need for that. Then if there's a need, there's an economic gain that can be had from that. But again, the part of what I was talking about battling, you know, everyone's battling for the same economic resource that is not as lucrative as it once was, and people are getting their hands on weapons a whole lot easier than what it was than they were able to in the past. So it seems like every time we take a weapon off the street, it's like 5 or 6 replace them immediately.
Wow.
And so you're looking at kids that are 13, 14 years old walking around with weapons on them.
That's what baffles my mind. What he just said, kids 13, 14 years old walking around with weapons.
Yes, and I'll tell you, when I came on in 1985, to see a gun on the street, I mean, it was like, you know, wow, there's a gun. To see a gun today, I mean, it's like almost a norm. Everybody's got one. If you go see a crowd standing on the corner, 1 out of 3 has a weapon.
Wow.
So the weapons are out there. We're taking them every single day, and immediately they're being replaced.
Where are they coming from? I mean,
well, you have what's called straw purchases. Someone who has a legal right that has no charges against them, an ability to buy guns. They're going in and buying weapons for other individuals, and they're getting on the street. You
so
buy
like a third-party person.
Yes, you go out. But if you're able to buy a gun legally, and you go to a store and you buy 2 or 3 weapons, and 2 days later you're reporting them stolen, or you don't report them stolen, but we come back to you and ask you where are those guns. You don't know. You don't have a story to where they are.
So you get the ID off the gun, so you know who purchased the gun.
Yes, they come with serial numbers. They can scratch them off, but again, we have the ability to raise obliterated numbers.
So what you're thinking is a younger guy is giving this guy $100 or $200 to buy a gun and give it to them.
Well, it may not be a younger guy. It could be someone who can legally purchase weapons, and they made that connection with them, and they go to a couple different store owners, buy weapons, and they get them out on the street.
Wow. Your department has come under criticism for not having a homicide unit.
Yes.
And matter of fact, I've gotten some inbox stuff that say, ask the chief, why don't we have a homicide unit when we're dealing with so many homicides?
Well, we've operated years without a homicide unit, and we're not saying that a homicide unit would not help. And again, the questions have come up recently. Right now, we keep saying we don't have the ability to sustain a homicide unit because of the authorized strength size and what we currently have. And our authorized strength, obviously we're below that number. We, again, just don't have the ability to, but we're looking at some other avenues of how we can work with some other agencies to bring a group together that will concentrate and focus on homicides.
So if you have a homicide unit, right,
yes,
the homicide unit will go right in and deal with some of the shots, some of the people getting shot and killed. And so some of the mothers or fathers of people who are frustrated, and you've been in those meetings, I'm just kind of looking on our side. They're like, why can't we have a homicide unit because a drug unit can't solve this problem?
See, but when you look at it...
You understand my point?
Yeah, I understand. And we have different divisions throughout the city, and they all focus on violent crimes. So there's a component where the drug unit has a role to play. The detectives have a role to play. The ATF, they're all looking at specific points of, and the DEA are looking at specific points of what's causing the violence. And separating them out, again, everybody's doing their own individual thing, but when you bring those together as a task force and you're looking at the issues, maybe it's not called a homicide unit, but you're looking at the issues that are causing the homicides. So we're looking at that kind of focus. And again, the ability to sustain a homicide unit, we just don't have that right now. And again, when homicides do occur, there is a detective that is assigned to investigate that homicide, and that one detective stays with that homicide until we come with some kind of resolution to it.
But you know, let me play devil's advocate. At the rate of the shootings and murders, whatever, you have one person, he might be investigating 25 homicides.
But that's
10.
not the case.
It's not the case.
No.
So it's something.
We have our homicides are spread out over individual detectives within our division.
Have you ever thought it's gotten to a point where we should Metropolitan bring in other police forces to merge as one?
Again, what that's going to do is it's going to bring resources to the city. But when you go metropolitan, what that generally means is that you're dissolving a police agency. So that means anyone who is on the particular agency or city where you're going to metropolitanize, that means that police force, anyone who has over 20 years plus, they're out the door. And then there's an opportunity.
So that's part of the deal?
Yeah. So then there's an opportunity that if you are a younger officer on the force, you might be given an opportunity to apply back to that agency. So you're not maintaining the same agency that you had and adding to it. You're dissolving the agency and you're bringing something new to the table. So again, that's part of why some people don't want to go to a metropolitan agency, because it's not positive for everybody who's in that, who would fall in that realm.
Let me ask you a question. I've gotten to a point, I've gotten so frustrated. I said, why don't we bring in the fucking National Guards? Is that like too over the board?
Yes, that's a little over the top, bringing in National Guard, because we do have other resources within law enforcement that we can bring to the table, and we partner with the Newcastle County State Police, Newcastle County Police. We partner with our governmental agencies, where we've all come together and looking at these issues.
Right.
The other thing is, even though we're down on our manpower right now, we're putting an academy in place right now. So by December, we'll be running a new academy to get back to our authorized strength. And as we've been down on manpower, again, like I said, we've been partnering with our local law enforcement agencies. And even outside of law enforcement, one of the biggest things that we've been doing is we're reaching back out to the community, because we can have all the resources necessary to help us solve crimes, but without information, you run into a roadblock, and it becomes, we really need the community's help in getting that done.
In certain neighborhoods where some of the crime is going on, and you guys know it like the people around the neighborhoods know, why don't we target, or do we target those neighborhoods? We have stuff on the book. We have laws on the book that says no loitering. And we talked about a 13-year-old. We got curfew laws in place. Do we sweep them up, or do you worry about the ACLU, the NAACP, and someone coming after you? Or do we just say, look, it's 12 o'clock, you're 13 years old, you should be in the house anyway?
Well, again, like you said, we have target areas where we know crime's occurring. And we do have curfew laws, loitering laws, things of that nature, and they are enforced. When you look at curfew laws, we can do our part in, and we do go out here and we stop the individuals and we try to get them at home. But the minute you take them back home, if the parent's not there to monitor what's going on within the household, that juvenile ends back right back out on the street. Do you arrest that juvenile and send them to somewhere like Ferris because their guidance at home is not totally in a place where it should be?
It's a holistic approach, you're saying.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I mean, it's more than just a police response. If you look for law enforcement to solve every issue that's going on the street, we're never going to get to where we need to be. But if you start involving all the groups, the social organizations, the community organizations, the civic associations, the church ministry, all of that has to play a role into changing the mindset of what's happening in our community. Again, law enforcement alone is not going to do it. I mean, to lock everybody up, what's that solving? I mean, all you're doing is you're putting people in a state where they're going to have the inability to move forward. Because every time someone gets arrested and they have a criminal history, they get a background, and they live in an urban environment, and they're not going to get a second chance, what do you think that means for them moving forward? So as a police chief, when I look at these things that are going on, and I look at it from a holistic approach, because I know it's just not on us to do it. I know we have a role to play, and we're going to play our role, and we're going to do it well. But it cannot just be law enforcement.
You know, when we look at what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, right?
Yes.
This young black kid shot by a white police officer. When you look at that, what do you think? What goes through your mind?
I don't make quick judgment on it, again, because I wasn't there, and I understand the perception and how it's going to look. But when you look at police organizations and you look at the demographics of a police organization, most police organizations are majority white males. The environments in which we police are majority minority communities. So when incidents take place, a lot of times they're going to be seen as racial in nature. People are going to be emotionally charged about what's going on, and sometimes you overlook the circumstances of the actual incident. Again, I wasn't at that location, but I do understand the emotionally charged sense that took place. But in saying all of that, you still have to, as a police agency, you have to engage the community to have that relationship with the community. So when these things happen, you can bring someone with a clearer mind to look at what took place and not get emotionally charged in the situation, and then you get outside of where you're supposed to be going with that situation.
I'm glad you brought that up. When you know, as a black chief, I mean, you're obviously black, and you see the violence in the black community.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
When you go home, I mean, sometimes you like, wow, I can't believe this. I mean, 'cause we talked about our kids.
Well, I mean, I understand. Again, living in this community, I grew up in the area in the city of Wilmington. I came from a poverty level home. We lived in Riverside. We lived on the west side. We lived the east side. So I understand what goes on in the community when people feel they don't have any other means of moving forward. When they see this dream that other people have, they have these big homes, they have these nice cars, and they kind of want the same things. And sometimes the means in which they choose to go get them are not the best decisions, not the best course of action. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. So,
wow, that's interesting.
So when it comes to policing, I kind of take that perspective and I look at all that. You must work hard for what you want, and you got to be respectful of people. But at the same time, I lived in the environment, knew what it was about. My grandmother was my police when I was coming up,
Right.
So she kept us on track. And I think we've just lost a lot of that. And again, I do have a perspective of it.
Well, what can we do differently as a community? And what can you guys do differently as a force?
Well, I don't think, again, I can put a deployment scheme out here that I think is going to meet the demands of the city. And we're going to put a presence out. We're going to have our officers in the right place. We're going to go to the schools and we're going to talk to kids. We're going to enforce some of the laws that are on the books. But when it really comes down to it, it really has to be driven back to the community as far as what are you going to be accountable to? What are you going to be responsible for? What kind of guidance are you going to give to your kids, your children, your family members to want to do the right thing? And I'll say, what is the right thing? the right thing? Is it based on societal laws? Is it based on the morals and upbringing that you have within your own household? Who determines what's right? But we know what we have to do is there are certain laws and there are certain conditions in the environment in which we live in the community that everyone has a standard that you expect people to hold up to. Mm-hmm. And when you go outside of that, you bring in law enforcement to try to impact that, but it just cannot be law enforcement alone. There's got to be these other social organizations and community. Everybody's got to come together to help solve these issues. So it's not just the police.
Thank you so very much. The air conditioner came on again. So
yes, yes.
You know, this, and I hope everyone who's watching respect and appreciate what these guys and girls go through. It's very enlightening. Thank you so very much. And we're going to be doing some more interviews today. Chief, thank you for really opening your schedule up because you didn't have to.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you, buddy.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Storm and I is going to continue to try to bring unedited, uncut, and raw footage to you. And this is what we do. I like the crew, man. The crew's pretty cool, too.